Hi, I'm Jon Velie, and this is another episode of Conversations with Cool People. And here I am today with the CEO of the New England Free Jacks. That's a Major League Rugby team that is based in Boston, Massachusetts, and covers all six of the New England states. And Alex Magleby is not just a CEO, but he was a national team coach for the USA Rugby Sevens. He was their general manager, high performance director, national team player, just a superstar in the sport of rugby, and has made the evolution into the front office. And Alex, welcome to our little show.
Jon, it's great to be on the show and great to reconnect. And I just have to give a shout out to my business haircut and then my party in the back.
Well, Alex, I'm a big fan of the mullet. I had a mullet when I played college rugby in the 80s. But it wasn't called a mullet back then. We just thought it was stylish. You know, the hockey players had it and the soccer players had it. So I was doing it in rugby, and I was out at Cal Berkeley, which is more of a hippie long haircut. And I thought I was being fashionable, you know, with my serious in the front, party in the back thing. And years later, it was just made fun of. So I'm glad you're bringing it back with style that it deserves and needs.
Yeah, we're bringing it back. You know, it's a great haircut, and mustaches are awesome as well. But just to really raise awareness for mental health issues, we certainly had a mental health crisis prior to COVID, and you know, certainly after the last 6 months, you know, some estimates from 20% to 40% of adults are dealing with some sort of mental issues right now. And
I tell you, man, we've seen it firsthand on COVID and how that's really been attacking people. We've had some turnover in our company. For people just really kind of feeling bad. I mean, you know, we've got a couple of people, we're in a smaller town and they were from bigger cities. They've had to go home, had to leave their jobs, you know, and just it's great that you're attacking that or approaching that thing. So hats off to you on that. That's awesome. So Alex, tell us a little bit about you, how you got into being in the front office of a professional rugby franchise and co-founder and CEO, no doubt.
Yeah, so Jon, you know, I grew up 80s and 90s in Utah, and back then there weren't a lot of pockets of high school rugby. There were some pretty successful ones, and Utah certainly was one of those. And I played for a high school team back when USA Rugby had a national championship. And we were kind of the perennial national champions at Highland. The work with them very good.
You were a Highland guy. Oh, that's one of the great rugby teams. I don't know that, Alex. I've known you for a long time, but Highland, that's probably the preeminent high school rugby team in the country. I mean, you guys had some squads that were fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, like my generation, there were four guys that went and played in the NFL, so real athletes.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we knew that. We saw those guys. That was that's impressive. Actually, making that side would have been no small effort.
Yeah. So you know, I had that opportunity, and that a lot of people didn't have that at the time. You know, we all played football in the fall, and in the winter you skied, you played basketball, and then rugby in the spring. And then I went to Dartmouth, and a long legacy of a quality program with great coaching.
Yeah.
And, similar to Cal, probably a junior version of Cal, a much smaller.
We played Dartmouth in the national championship, the only national championship I got to win in '88, and we won on a penalty kick. And matter of fact, there is great dispute of whether my friend James Smith, who was the prop, dumped the scrum, or I forget the name of the guy. He was an All-American. Great. What's that?
Was it Tata?
Yes, Tata. Tata versus James Smith. Tata was a superstar. The ref calls Tata for dumping the scrum. Scott Barber, who is now the orthopedic doctor and sponsor of Rugby ATL, kicks the penalty kick, and we win a very, I think it was 9-3 or 9-6 or something like that. But what a game. And I went up against Bobby Sproul. And those guys were awesome, man. I mean, we became good friends. They went on tour to Cal before the national championship. We faced them that second time. Hats off to Dartmouth Rugby. They are a great team. And our team in Oklahoma was founded by a Dartmouth alum, John Woods, and a Harvard alum, my father, and a Marine, Tarzan Wilson. So we've known about Dartmouth Rugby my whole life, and many great friends on that team. So, yeah, you've done some great stuff with that program, and a long line of great guys there.
Absolutely. You know,
and women. It reminds me more of Redcorn, who I grew up with in high school. She went to Dartmouth when I went to Cal, and she went on to become a women's Eagle, and still really big part of Dartmouth and her background. So
yeah, they're now a varsity program, and
yeah,
the coach, and she's doing a fantastic job and continues the legacy of producing top quality international, Eagles.
yeah. So, and that reminds me of when Dartmouth played Cal in the CRC when you were the head coach, which was really your launching pad into becoming the national team coach, as I recall. And you guys were spunky. You had a couple twins on the team, as I recall, and Berkeley, a powerhouse team, and you guys won it with, don't mean any insult, less athletic guys and winning rucks in sevens, and that was. I remember that. I watched every match of that tournament, and you guys played just beautiful, great, controlled rugby.
Yeah, it was a great group. That group had played the year before in Columbus, and so they learned a lot. They then, played together in 2011 and won that. They won it in 2012 as well. And Madison was a freshman on the 2012 team. Madison Hughes, the
Right.
current U.S. men's team, sevens team. So great. And Chris and Nick Downer, they were MVPs, and
right.
Just all of them tremendously good humans. Nate Brakeley was part of that. He was a legend in MLR. He's also a Capped Eagle. And just a really, really good group to work with. They
fantastic. So where did winning that national championship in sevens rank in your personal achievements?
It was pretty special. It was pretty special to go through that experience with that group kind of over that 2 to 3 years. Just to be a part of that growth and their knowledge transfer, and just seeing what they were able to create and being a part of that. I was very fortunate to be a part of that. And it was pretty awesome. It was pretty special. We got back to campus both times, and the campus was going crazy. And it was a lot of fun. We were on national TV, like rugby, to the Presmack family for making that a reality for a lot of student collegiate athletes. And it was exactly like the World Series. They were fed well, housed, great venue.
Yeah. Awesome. I got a chance to coach the Oklahoma team there once in 2012, and it was such a great experience for our guys. We toured all the way up the East Coast, went to New York, played a little touch rugby in Central Park, played an all black and Hispanic high school, to kind of warm up for it. It was a real treat, and for the guys to be at that level was really neat. And so that was really where I saw the big jump of rugby. Got on the NBC and stuff like that, went through colleges first, and then so really kind of now take your career. You went from there to be the U.S. national team coach, and now you're the CEO of a Major League Rugby franchise. So tell us about what American rugby, what's coming up with Major League Rugby, what's coming up for the Free Jacks. What are your thoughts, your joys, your challenges?
You look at the participation numbers, and they've increased in some capacities, some areas maybe not so much. The big thing for us is making sure people get to experience our sport, and our sport is this beautiful, wonderful thing on the field. Right? It's very physical, safe physicality relative to some of the sports that a lot of us grew up playing and watching here in the States. It's the duality of that physicality with the beauty of the sport, the give and goes, then with the ability to kick and manipulate a field in terms of a chess match in that regard.
Yeah.
There's so many things about our sport itself on the field. But what's so brilliant about our sport is the purity of that competition is so amazing, but off the field, everybody realizes, okay, that's just sport. That was an awesome contest. Yeah. Just like we sat down to play chess, that we had a great contest, winner or loser, we walk off, we celebrate the fact that we were able to do that together. And that's a fantastic thing about our sport, is that duality of, being really polished and buttoned up, but being a bit cheeky. It's cool, but graceful. It is, it's hard, but it's a celebration, right? And I think that's just a great story. And so what we're tasked with doing as live events companies right now is making sure we open up those opportunities to share in that experience as much as we possibly can with new fans. And we're seeing that some fantastic growth in that regard. People who hadn't played it now coming into it and just experiencing the lifestyle really of what rugby is all about, just being good people. And I think that's really sellable, and people are really attracted to that. And I'm going to continue to share that.
Yeah, let's go into that a little bit, because the dynamic of rugby is different than every other sport. And you'll hear any of the guys that have played both, including the guy that's looming over your shoulder, professional football player Nate Ebner, U.S. national team player, scored a try in the Olympics. But in conversations with him, And really anybody that's played rugby and others always loves the camaraderie. How are you, bringing fans into that? People, to be a rugby fan is different than being a football fan, isn't it? It's different than being a New England Patriot fan to be a New England Free Jack fan. And how are you doing that? What's that experience like for somebody that's never been around rugby? They're like, hey, come watch a game, and this is what this experience is going to be like. Tell us a little bit about that.
We celebrate the working really hard all week. We have a demographic and a growing demographic that is socioeconomically diverse, but typically decently educated, but they work, whether they're laborers or whether they're attorneys, right?
Right.
Work hard. What we provide them is an opportunity to come together and kind of celebrate that work week, have a lot of fun, have some laughs, but it's not so crazy that it's offensive.
Right.
There's songs, but they're not offensive. There's tailgating, which we all love. There's even parading and marching, and there's all these other things going on in that kind of match day festival. Great rugby on the field. But you know what? If 25% of the people come to those events and walk off and didn't watch any rugby, we're probably still pretty successful. Over time, they're going to watch the rugby and learn more about it. And they're like, oh, that's actually, I get that. That's a scrum. Well, that was just like scrimmage line in football. Okay, I totally get that. And that's what we offer. It's just an intimate experience you can't get in other sports entertainment properties in the United States. It's that intimacy. It's the globalness of it that you don't really get. Sports, soccer has a bit of that, but the that connection, that intimacy is something that is very attractive. And I think that's what sets us apart and a bit different than what currently exists in the American sports entertainment landscape.
For sure. I mean, the term elegant violence, you see on bumper stickers, but, rugby's like an onion, right? You peel it back and you learn more about it. You see it at the beginning. You don't know anything about it. You see a scrum. You're like, what is this? 8 guys on each side, a line out where they're lifting these guys, just 15 people on the pitch on each team. It's a massive number of people, big hits, but yet some of it's almost like ballet, isn't it? I mean, a good break with 6 or 7 guys touching the ball is just a beautiful thing about the game. And then you're right, the rugby party has a mystique, but it's sophisticated at the same time. It's fun, and playing against your bitter rivals and then shaking their hands afterwards. This is real. You're not making this up. There's no Disneyland here. No. It's and people playing from all over the world in all walks of life. You're absolutely right, and it's what makes some people call it the game they play in heaven. But a lot of people say I've never had more fun playing a sport than this one, and seeing it go into the professional ranks in America and bringing the fan into it in a real way, in an intimate way. I mean, that's just smart. But I can't see it being done any other way, right? I mean, that's really neat. The fact that you could get to know your stars of your town the way that the Baltimore Colts people used to know the Baltimore Colt world champions in the 50s, right? That's what we have right now, don't we? And get to know your people, get to know your stars in a way. It's fantastic, Max. It's really good.
The relatability of our heroes, I think, John, is a really good point. It's the relatability of our heroes on the field, right?
Right.
They're coaching kids rugby. They're working at schools. They're an everyday person who's done well on the field. It's not the kind of like, Tom Brady model, aspirational, never be that kind of star. And that's not negative. I'm not saying that's negative. It's just different.
Right. It's different, better. Yeah.
I could sit down and have a beer with that person, right? That's my neighbor. Yeah. To your point about the old Colts and just the old NFL 50 years ago versus probably a bit more what that is today.
You'd never see those guys today. You'd never see them in a local bar or restaurant, or if you did, you wouldn't dare talk to them, right? I mean, this is a different thing, and that's really neat. And we've been waiting for pro rugby forever. I mean, I remember a bumper sticker at Monterey, when I was a kid that said Pro Rugby 1977. It never happened, right? But then we've got Pro Rugby, now we have Major League Rugby. Keeps growing, keeps getting better, more teams. It's fantastic. Where do you think it goes next?
I think we continue to see the growth we have.
Yeah.
Clearly, 5 of sports in the United States have a massive participation part underneath. So there's really 2 parts of this. There's increasing participation. That's people who play the game, people who coach the game, people who ref the game, because that fills up the funnel, right? And what we're all about is at the Free Jacks and certainly MLR is providing more of those opportunities so people can come into the game as participants, but the ones who are already in the game having a better experience than they do. and just really making sure we're helping the scholastic model and continue to share the values of the game through participation. And then going back to what we just talked about is really the community culture piece of our sport. And
Right.
people who have never participated or may never ever want to participate, but still have access to the beauty of what this whole thing is, the beauty of this culture, and sharing that. And, that's COVID aside, that's cookouts, that's, doing 5Ks together, that's, raising money together for charity like we're doing for Mullets and Mustaches, that is agnostic whether you ever played the game or not. So it's those two things, right? We do know that we have a very attractive TV product. It's a big ball, it's a white ball, there's ball movement. I understand that. The game's not very long, but it's long enough that you can get into the strategy of it and the technical pieces of that. Getting people and educating people on like what those things are and what that means. By the way, the uniforms, we can sell the heroes that we were just talking about. They're very sellable. Most of them are fairly well spoken. They're global.
You get to see their faces. They don't have helmets over it, right?
Good looking people, and that's our in terms of rugby in this country, and you see that with our 7-a-side programs and just how well they're doing, kind of that as they're becoming. And I think that's a really attractive bit for TV. So it's a sport that in many ways is made for media. Going back to that live events piece we talked about, that's also so important for us to develop our fans for the future.
That's fantastic. And so let's talk about the global thing. We're a couple of American kids that learned rugby in America. You in Utah, me in Norman, Oklahoma, and the rarity of that, right? I think I was the only high school player in the state of Oklahoma because my dad founded the college team. I got to play with older guys, and it was club rugby back then. So I had 26-year-old, 30-year-old teammates as a 17-year-old, 125-pound kid. My first match against the Marine and artillery guys at Fort Sill. It was an insane way to get involved in the game, but it was fun. And here we are today. And working in the sport, there was no money to make when I was in rugby. It was an amateur sport. But now what I get to do is bring in international stars to play. I just got an All Blacks jersey from Areni, who was he was the world's rugby's sevens player of the year for the All Blacks. A team that is just beyond all mystique. And now he's coaching the Giltinis. He's the backs coach for the Giltinis, and I got to do the Beasts visa. He would win the World Cup, and before that, Wasseli Serevi. Having Wasseli Serevi on speed dial is like having Michael Jordan for me, and just great to be able to talk to those guys. But it's really neat to talk to coaches and players before they come to America, ask them why they want to come here, and it's really neat. It's been fun working with you both on the national team and the Free Jacks to help look at strategies to get these players to come here, because what we have in America, we're not the most sophisticated rugby market by any stretch of it, but we are the best sports market in the world. And this is where we catapult past the other countries because of how we market sports in our country. And that's what I love so much, that you're involved in this and how you're talking about it, your passion and vision. But what are you looking for when you're looking at players to bring over here to come into the American market? How do you convince a guy to leave New Zealand or South Africa or Argentina or wherever they may to come play in Boston? What's that experience like?
Yeah, so John, I think there's two pieces of that. One is continuing to find ways to generate more local talent. I think that's a really important piece to our future growth, and we're seeing from some colleges and high schools that continues to solidify that scholastic model. That's really, really important. Part of helping those players transition into professional rugby is mentorship for people who have that experience, right?
Sure.
An important piece. Globally right now, there's probably a high quality of really good players floating around. 20 years ago, the rugby-centric countries all invested heavily in their academies and everything. They continue to produce really, really good players, and there's not enough professional spots for players throughout the world. So there is a supply of really high quality players on the market right now on a macro level, and then just the attractiveness of playing into a new competition, a startup competition that is it's a fast game. It's an energizing game. You're not playing these like middle of December, January, Scotland, get beat up on an ice kind of thing. and you're not playing that other model, which is like 32, 35 games a year and just getting totally beat up. It's a nice, coherent season, and you get to experience the United States and Canada, which is very, very cool. And so
Yeah.
you're a star player in your country, you've kind of done that thing. Yeah, you may not make the same on your salary that you did at home, but you're having this world-class experience in this country and seeing the world from a different thing, and all part of this startup and mentoring other players. And that is, I think, a really, really cool experience for some. And then some are kind of at that lower age where there's just not enough opportunities at home. And so, but they're really high quality, like no difference between player B. And so we're seeing a lot of those players come over as well. So there's high demand to be playing in Major League Rugby, and that's really cool.
Well, I've noticed just the rugby level of these players. I've been lucky. I got a front row spot on, this sort of stuff. It's kind of like, playing fantasy football with real life, right? And getting to work on the visas for these guys. I mean, the guys that are playing in this competition are world-class players. I mean, stars for their national teams, playing at the top professional competitions around the world. It's amazing how good the level of rugby is in Major League Rugby right now.
Yeah,
I'm just loving it. It's fantastic.
John, you've been phenomenal in helping us in that regard, and helping advise on how best to do that. And we just really appreciate all your efforts on that.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed it, and getting to know some of the guys and their American dream come true is really neat. One of my favorite of your guys is Tom Kindly. And, where you brought him on comes to Dartmouth on a J1. Then he's with the Free Jacks, and he's with USA Rugby, and, doing so much of that hard, front office stuff. You see him growing as a person. And I just love to see when people come to this country and make it. That's been fun to watch.
Take an opportunity and really run with it. Again, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. Well, thanks on that. So I wanted to briefly talk about the guy over your shoulder, Nate Ebner. This is, one of ours that went on to play pro football, and the story of Nate's fantastic. He was a high school rugby player, and his dad was his coach, Jeff Ebner. And I'm actually wearing a jacket today that I got to present to Nate on behalf of his father. And I tell you, there wasn't a dry eye in the place. We did it in conjunction with the USA Sevens. We had the Magleby team is the national team that represents in the World Magleby Games. Those are for Jewish athletes. And so Jeff played on that team. He goes into the Hall of Fame. Jeff was murdered when Nate was a young man, and he had already played high school rugby for him. And he had he'd talked to his dad about, and he was playing rugby for Ohio State, about trying out for the football team. And he tries out for the football team, makes the football team. His dad is murdered while he's away at college. He talked about when his dad would come visit him in Columbus. They lived in another city in Ohio. And then after he makes the Patriots, he wins the Super Bowl a couple of times. And, as a defensive back. And then he decides he wants to go back to rugby, and he makes the national team. He makes the Olympic team. And he had to talk Belichick into missing mandatory practice to go down to the Olympics. And I remember so much about that is on SportsCenter on the day that the U.S. was going to play its first Olympic game since the 1920s, in 15s, that Bill Belichick is wearing a USA Rugby jersey to practice. And Brady sends out a tweet wearing the USA Rugby jersey and his Patriots helmet. And then Ebner scores a try. And if angels that can look down on you and help you through life exist, that had to be Jeff Ebner throughout that pathway. And I tell you, when we inducted his father into the Hall of Fame and he talked about his dad, I tell you, one of the most moving things. It's giving me goosebumps just thinking about it right now. And now he's an owner, one of the owners of the Free Jacks, isn't he?
He is, yeah. I mean,
such a fantastic thing, and we're so proud of him as a rugby player that makes it good in pro football, but then comes back into the game, and owns a franchise. That's just a really neat thing, and what an honor to get to be around a guy like that.
He's a great human.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, we're kind of getting up at the end here. Anything you want to chat about going forward, or?
John, it's just been, COVID obviously is, we weren't able to share the experiences of our live events with our fans. And we've got a great fan group already, but develop other fans. So we've really had to shift to do a lot of things virtually.
Sure.
And maintaining connections there, and really becoming more of a media company right now. And
sure.
We've started Academy. We've had 1,000 people come through that. Now we're able to get on the field a little bit.
1,000 people through the Academy. That's fantastic. When's the season going to start now? Do you guys have a solid date, or is it a little fluid with COVID?
So we're still aiming for spring. I think we all understand that we're a live events companies.
Sure.
Chance that we'd still do a potentially bubble, but safety first of our players and staff, of course, and our fans, and not put anybody in harm's way. But I think we have time on our side right now,
sure.
That's what we're going to learn a lot of lessons this fall from a lot of the other sports that continue to engage in their own local environments, and we'll see where it goes. And obviously things change every day with COVID management, but safety first will drive all of that. In the meantime, we've done the virtual academy. We've created 3 different podcasts. I'm running this one called Contact CEO, and that's really just sharing the conversations that are already happening in terms of growing a sports entertainment startup, to try to become a global sports entertainment startup, and sharing those conversations. That's been a lot of fun, and we're able to right now help raise some money and awareness for mental health, and that's something we're really focused on. It's really important to us as an organization, so we're going to keep pushing that. And then the Academy is going to start picking up steam here pretty soon in terms of what we're going to be allowed to do on the field at all levels. And then, of course, the players will start arriving in the winter, and then we've got a great season ahead. So it's really exciting times, and what it allowed us to do is kind of to evaluate and reset this whole COVID thing. And we've got a new commissioner who's doing fantastic things and building a really good office. So it's a very bright future for Major League Rugby.
That's fantastic. So where does someone go to find out about how to get tickets and watch the Free Jacks?
Yeah, freejacks.com. It's got everything you need to know.
Okay. And who are some of the players to watch out for this year on the Free Jacks?
Ones. I mean, Tara was probably the first one we announced. Tara Matembu, who you've been really helpful with. Tara was captain of the Sharks in Super Rugby.
Right.
Dougie Fife was quickly announced thereafter. He's a Scotland international in 7s and 15s. Dougie will be an electric wing for us. And there's a long list of guys like that, plus a lot of the returning guys, the American domestic players we're really excited about. So there'll be more announcements here in the next couple weeks. So we have
That's fantastic. So how do you predict the team's going to go this year? Or are we going to see the Free Jacks?
I think at the end of the day, everybody's going to say, you know what, that's a really humble team. That's a really hungry team, and they're having a lot of fun. And I think that the wins are going to take care of themselves. But I think that's what people will see and feel, and that's what we're really excited about.
Where do the Free Jacks play?
We're at Weymouth at the Union Point Sports Complex. We built a temporary stadium there, and we have offices, and we engage with a lot of things in downtown. So we're that's kind of the greater Boston area. Then we have an office in Hanover, New Hampshire, and we do academies and clinics in all 6 states.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Boston has some of the best fans in the world, and to play any sport there is fantastic. I'm really proud of you and happy that you're doing it with the rugby team. And it's been a pleasure talking to you again, Mags. And we'll sign off now. I'm Jon Velie. This is Conversations with Cool People, and this is a really cool guy, Alexander Magleby. And go check this out on the OnlineVisas YouTube channel. If you like it, please subscribe, like, and share. And Mags, good luck with Full Contact CEO. I've been watching that stuff. It's good work what you're doing on that, and showing so many different aspects of your very diverse skill set. And good to see you do it.
Good man. I appreciate it. It was great to reconnect.
All right. Take care, Mags.